Hi lovelies! So we all know that physics is boring, and we all know that it doesn't apply to our day-to-day lives, except that both of those statements are completely false. However, it's pretty obvious that finding how many Smurfs you need to pull an elephant is awesome, and figuring out how many books you can put on your head before crushing your skull is applicable, but when we're talking about magnetism, things are a lot harder to picture. One of the most notoriously difficult parts of E&M to understand is induced currents, for which we turn to our good friend Lenz's law, which tells us how a loop or coil of wire will react to a change in magnetic flux. The great part about Lenz's law is that there's no calculation involved. The horrible part about Lenz's law is that there's no calculation and no lenses involved. So back to Lenz. So hopefully by now you've talked about what magnetic fields are and have a general idea of where they come from and what they do. For this law, we only really need to remember that currents can create magnetic fields. Lenz's law is based on the fundamental idea that if you have a loop or coil of wire, it doesn't like change. Since it's easier to draw in 2 dimensions, we're just looking at a loop. If I've applied a magnetic field outside the loop, usually involving a magnet or a machine or something, there's a certain amount of magnetic flux going through the loop. Flux is just how much stuff moves through something. So we're chilling, and some flux is going through our loop when I start to change things. As I turn the dial on my magnetic field machine, more or less magnetic field goes through the loop, which means the flux is changing. The loop doesn't like that, so it's going to create its own magnetic field to counteract the change. If the flux is increasing, the loop opposes it and creates a field in the opposite way. If the flux is decreasing, the loop helps out the field and creates a field going the same way. That field had to come from somewhere, which is from the induced current. Typically, when we encounter a Lenz's law problem, it's asking us to find the direction of the induced current. We can follow a 5-step process to figure this out. Step 1. Identify which way the magnetic field points, which is the one caused by something else, relative to inside the loop. Usually this is given to you in the problem statement. Step 2. Determine whether magnetic flux is increasing or decreasing. A lot of times the problem will say something like the magnet is moved closer, which is an increase in flux, or even easier, the flux is increasing at 10 teslas per second. However, sometimes we have a loop rotating. We'll talk about that in a later video. Step 3. Decide whether the loop would like to help or oppose the existing magnetic field. If the flux is increasing, the loop will oppose the existing magnetic field. If the flux is decreasing, the loop will help the existing field. Step 4. Decide which way the loop's magnetic field points. This would be the induced magnetic field. If the loop is helping the existing field, it will point the same direction as the existing field, and if the loop is opposing the existing field, its induced field will point in the opposite direction. An increase in flux will always lead to a field in the opposite direction, and a decreasing flux will always cause a field in the same direction as the existing one, pink with pink and green with green. Step 5. Use the right-hand rule to determine the direction of induced current. I went ahead and made another video on the right-hand rule, so feel free to check that out if you need some help with it. So for this situation I've been drawing, we've a magnetic field going into the page that is increasing at 10 teslas per second. Since it's increasing, the loop is going to oppose it and go the opposite direction as the existing field. Therefore, in this situation, my loop will induce a magnetic field out of the page. I point my thumb in the direction of induced field and curl my fingers to find the direction of induced current to find a counterclockwise induced current. So in this situation I just did, we were given steps 1 and 2 and could figure out steps 3, 4, and 5. However, if you're given steps 1 and 5 or steps 2 and 5, you can figure out anything else you might need to know. So hopefully that helped you guys with a little bit of Lenz's law. Feel free to check out my other videos on what to do if you've got a rotating loop, or how to do the right-hand rule just for situations like this. Let me know if you've got any questions down in the comments that you want me to answer soon. Much love, good luck!